Welcome back to the Computational Antitrust podcast. My name is Thibaut Schrepel. I am a faculty affiliate at Stanford University Codex Center, an associate professor of law at the VU Amsterdam, and the creator of the Computational Antitrust project, which explores how legal informatics can benefit antitrust law. The project brings together over 65 competition agencies and about 50 academics on the advisory board. Every month or so, we publish an academic article on the subject. You may find all of those publications at computationalantitrust.com. Today's guest is Cani Fernández, president of the National Commission for Markets and Competition in Spain since 2020. Cani has been a leading figure in the field for quite some time, and I am thus delighted that she has agreed to this talk and that her agency joined the Computational Antitrust project in its early days. She is showing a very sensible and careful way of doing competition law, as you will hear in today's conversation. By the end of this episode, you will know more about her strategy to foster computational antitrust within the Spanish Competition Agency, what role lawyers can play, where she will invest resources in years to come, how computational antitrust can help explore the full scope of the consumer welfare standard, how computational tools can help a better coordination between competition law and regulation, what she did to ensure that the agency's computer scientists will cooperate with lawyers, and vice versa, how she deals with companies with big or small computational capabilities, and more. I hope you enjoy the conversation. What I thought I would be doing is to divide the conversation in three different parts. In part one, I want to talk about the institutional capacity of your agency. In part two, move towards some more substantial issues and see how computational antitrust may impact those issues, or at least our assessment of those issues. And in part three, I want to talk about some digital challenges that you see on the horizon. So coming back now to part one, the institutional capacity, I think it's fair to say that Spain has been a very active player in the field of computational antitrust. You do have a economic intelligence unit that you created in 2018 that is truly multidisciplinary, because we like to say that things are multidisciplinary, but they're not always. So congratulations on that. And to be more specific, the unit is active in using tools to detect practices, including in public procurement, but also to analyze those practices, etc. And in fact, in your contribution to our second annual report, you highlight that in between 18 and 2022, so during those 4 years, 70% of your cartel decisions were not triggered by leniency applications, which means that you have to be proactive and find the practices yourself. And here, computational antitrust has obviously a big, important role to play. So the question is this: how big is your agency investment in this area? And maybe if you have numbers or key facts, stories you'd like to share, now is the time.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure contributing to this series of conversations. And well, regarding your question, yeah, I think I have to say that this was a serious, remarkable bet from the very beginning. It started in 2018, but it started in a very informal way. People that were interested inside the institution from different units were gathering in order to discuss, reflect, and see how to advance in the digital detection area, or even in the digital capabilities of the authority. And they started to work informally during their working time, but not only. I've been told very funny stories of people imagining something during the weekend and calling the others to see whether this was feasible or not. So it was really the result of lots of energy and commitment from a personal point of view, but also from the authority itself. The authority realized very soon in this 2018 pre-pandemic that this was a seed to be planted. And when I took office in 2020, I realized that this was the way. I mean, I took it from a very personal commitment to put it high in our agenda. So in 2024, we have tripled the size of the unit. It's not a very big unit, but at least we show how interested we are to the extent of our real capabilities, because we are a public authority that is submitted to public budget, and as you can imagine, we have our constraints. But I have to say that with this very informal and then more formal origin of the economic intelligence unit, we have obtained already very promising results. I mean, we've been able to start by creating an algorithm that was able to process information that was not treatable, that was not in itself sufficiently usable in data sets, to be able to be usable in a way, to be able to be treated. And this was an algorithm that was created in-house. That was one of the very successful beginnings of the unit, because this seems to be a very basic thing, but the results of this very basic algorithm were that we were able to structure information that was not readable into readable information. In the field of public procurement, which is the field in which we have bloomed more, I would say, and this is because since 2014, our people have been cleaning and treating the database of the public procurement portal, not only the central portal, but also making agreements with the regional public procurement portals to include the data. They've been cleaning it, they've been producing an own data set that was treatable. The fact of being able to also include there information that was not previously structured meant that from one day to the following, with lots of work, of course, but we were able to read not only the winning bits, but also the losing bits. And this made all the difference, because when you want to detect patterns, the most important thing that you have to do is not only being able to see which companies have been winning, but also when companies have been losing and then winning, losing and then winning. And this gave us a very first, brink of joy, I would say, but because we were able to see results. Now, this was very basic at the very beginning, but this allowed our people who are, and this is, I think, probably one of the recipes for success, and if there are other authorities listening to me, that would be my first piece of advice. The fact that we have been able to put in that unit people from very different origins, backgrounds, expertise. We have people that are jurists, people that are very, very good in knowing the limits and the possibilities from a legal point of view from the competition side. Also economists that are data analysts, but not only, of course, we have data scientists, mathematicians, engineers. We have people that have different ways of viewing the world in the digital field, who are also cross-trained, and this is very, very important, in the competition aspects, so that they are able to, from their own perspective, see which is the object of what we are trying to find. So those were the starting development. I mean, with this algorithm, and we were able to treat our already cleaned database. And they are able to adapt because of this multidisciplinary environment in which they are. I think they are able to adapt to the evolution and improving of all the techniques that are every single day pumping up. I mean, including the codification and deployment of new screening variables, exploiting new algorithms, basic models, generative AI. So what they are trying to do is every single day they are testing. They are testing our product, our databases, our ways of work with what's new in the market. So this is a challenge as well, because this new, every new model, every new technique, of course, requires resources. And as I was saying at the very beginning, well, we have what we have, and we are able to go with that, probably because we are having this multi-sided combination of ways of dealing, creativity, and also, I mean, this bet, because it is high in our agenda, we know, and we've been able to also convey the message to the ministries that we are inserted to. But we need further investments. That's a reality. And the problem is that these further investments have to be done in specialized personnel, namely data scientists and analysts. And this is a market of demand and offer. And as you know, everybody, supply of this kind of profiles is really scarce, or even if it is scarce, it's very expensive. So for a public administration, that is a challenge. But we are on that, and we are with our commitment, creativity, and also the motivation of the results that we are getting. And we can talk about Brava afterwards if you want, which is the next frontier. This is in reality helping us go forward. Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks a lot. Just a couple of reactions. First, I like very much the idea that it was an emergent process within the agency, people with interest in the space. I believe that Gmail started this way, right? And eventually Google said, well, this is not too bad. Maybe we should make it one of the main products of the company. And also what you explained, the fact that it's not about replacing the employees that you had, but to investigate new spaces where the human brain is good at a lot of things, but not necessarily at looking at thousands of pages and detecting patterns, which is where you may want to use computational antitrust. And you've mentioned the role of lawyers. I mean, obviously, it's not just that computer scientists will run competition agencies on their own in just 10 years from now. You also need lawyers to say, well, those are the limits, the right of defense, this is what is acceptable before the Court of Appeal, and so on and so forth. But coming back to the main subjects of your answer, which is the budget. So indeed, the budget of any agency is limited. Now, we know that because you publicly exposed the fact that you have to deal with more phase 2 mergers than ever before. And on the side, of course, you have all of the antitrust cases. So where do you see, if you had to choose maybe niche areas, where do you see the Spanish Competition Agency strengthening its expertise the most?
Well, if we continue, because I think it is a very good proxy of how things work in our agency. The fact that we have this multidisciplinary unit that has been created from different units provides, at least from the very beginning, two very important benefits. The first one is that because the unit has been created from people having perspective of the whole work of the authority, the unit is also helping in the most complex situations that we are having. For example, you are mentioning second phase investigations. In second phase investigations in mergers, we normally need, we are confronted to dealing with lots of information, sometimes market studies or the market tests that we are doing provide us with lots of data that have to be treated. And there, the Economic Intelligence Unit, for example, is helping us. Thanks to them as well, we've been able to undertake something that I really wanted to do when I took office, which is being aware, being sure that every single merger that has to be notified in Spain is in fact notified. You know that we have this market share threshold, and from this perspective, there are many more mergers in Spain than in other places that have to be notified. And normally when you have a merger that has a high market share that is going to be increased, well, it's likely that you may end up having more problems than if you are just only notifying on the basis of the turnover. So the Economic Intelligence Unit has been also able to help us detecting cases of gun jumping. based on how traditional data mining techniques, or even using the latest AI technologies and LLM models to speed the process of this of the treatment of these large volumes of data. So it is true that we are coming across more complex markets, also because of the existence of more data but there the unit is helping us, and it is helping us in a natural way because they are aware of the work that we do at the authority and how it can be more complex. The second thing is, for example, you mentioned mergers, but let me mention as well other areas, like, for example, cartels or detection of cartels, or sometimes the possibility of having to get a judicial warrant to go on a downgrade. And there, the Economic Intelligence Unit is also helping us in order to make our set of indicia stronger, in order to convince the judge, for example. In public procurement cases, it is very, very clear because they are able to detect some more indicia that will go together to convince the judge. So they are also helping there. It is also true that the Economic Intelligence Unit is having as well the channel of informants or the channel of citizens' contribution or citizens' address when there is any possibility of for citizens to complain about something that they detect in the market. It is the same channel. I mean, they are connecting to us through the Economic Intelligence Unit. Provides them with the possibility of going really with a variety of things that are connected, and they are able to double check through their digital capabilities, and that helps as well in order to go and ask for this judicial warrant, without which we cannot go into the premises of a company. The second element that I wanted to mention, that it is also very important in terms of how the unit has been created and why it is so important that it's coming from people that are inside the authority that you mentioned, is that because they are able to understand which are the problems that our case handlers are experiencing when dealing with data, or when dealing with algorithms, or when dealing with anything that will be complicated. What they are trying to do is making things easier. They act as a kind of an interface between the complexity of the use of what they are doing and the need of our case handlers in order to be able to use that product. And so they are trying to translate that according to the needs of, because they've been case handlers before, for example, or they've been IT consultants trying to help other colleagues. So that is also very relevant, that they are trying to make it simple and easy for everybody to be able to access these new tools. And I think that is very relevant because when you are confronted to very complex situations like a second phase merger, or the need to go really in depth during a downgrade, and you don't know how to deal with those technological capabilities, they are there to help. So I think that, I mean, they are trying to make us understand in a better way what is the most complex situations in the digital area. So, yeah.
And so in a sense, when we started the project 4 years ago, a lot of what I've heard from some agencies, especially small agencies, very small agencies, was give us the tool so that we can just deploy it and solve all of the issues. But of course, you need then the expertise to be able to use the tool, explain what it does, the limitations, and it's a lot of what your team is doing in the space. But that brings me to part 2 of the conversation that relates to the substantial issues. Already you've mentioned that you can use computational work to move in the direction of the law and make the case stronger, to convince a judge. And I see also that there is an interconnected relationship between those tools and the substantial level that works in the opposite direction almost, where you see that the substance of what is computational law and the rules that we have may change or be better explored because we have computational tools. One clear example, and we have to talk about that, is the consumer welfare standards. I mean, I hope it's fair to say that your agency is pursuing that standard. Now, obviously, it's not as narrow as some people pretend it is. You can punish harm to innovation, for instance, and other non-price variable. So in that sense,
for example, sorry.
Exactly. So I guess the question is, what role are computational tools playing in exploring the full potential of consumer welfare standards?
Well, it is difficult because, yeah, we are able to intuitively see that choice or quality, difficult to define, are also parameters of consumer welfare, clearly. But it is very difficult to put them down to earth in order to measure them. And you know that when you are not able to measure something, that's going to be very difficult to quantify. And if you cannot quantify, then at the end of the day, it doesn't exist. So what we've been seeing, and of course, price is a very simple parameter that you can always check rapidly, is that, for example, in the area of public procurement, where also public budget control is putting an emphasis in price, there are other parameters, for example, environmental concerns or diversity, the teams that are going to be selected, and things like that that are also playing a role. And it is true that with our computational capabilities, we're able to start detecting these elements because they will be attributed during the bids. They will be having some points attributed that are going to allow us to start measuring this. So in a way, we can start having parameters that are able to be considered, then maybe quantified, and when they are quantified, then we can add them to our computational analysis in a way. We've started doing this in public procurement. Of course, this may be also the case in other areas, but the important thing is being able to detect that, to give them a parameter value, and then we will be able to add them. Which is clearly true in choice. Choice is easier maybe because you have the possibility of attributing points to different elections. But in a way, we are convinced from an intuitive point of view that consumer welfare is much more than price, of course, and it's just a question to land the concepts into something that is able to be measured and then analyzed.
Yeah, and choice is a very good example, because if you say that reducing choice is always harmful to consumer, then you kind of neglect all of the consumer psychology literature showing that sometimes, not always, of course, but sometimes it may be in the best interest of consumer, which doesn't mean that reducing choice is always pro-consumers. So you may want to be able to assess when the company is reducing choice in a way that is good for the company and to hurt competitors and consumers or not. And that brings me to a second substantial issue, actually, that relates to, and that is very specific to your agency, and the fact that you do, of course, enforce competition rules, but you also have some regulatory oversight in postal services, audiovisual, energy, and so on and so forth. Now, we know that the tension between that kind of regulatory oversight and competition law is strengthening. The GMA is a very good example where you see that, well, sometimes it's not so easy to define what is competition and what is regulation. So I guess the question is, how do you see computational tools helping in addressing those trade-offs?
Well, it is maybe obvious, but the sentence I like to say when asked this question is that for me, regulation and competition are really complements and not substitutes. And I mean, my DNA is a DNA where a regulation is just the last resort when something is not working properly in the market. So we should go for regulation when there is, I mean, just the last resort in a way. But it's true that there are many situations in which regulation is needed when you have failures in the market, when you really need to clarify an area, and by regulating some things, you can make markets more competitive. For example, by opening the number of players in the market or lowering barriers to entry. So I see them as complements, not as substitutes. The DMA is a very good example. I mean, the DMA has made it very clear that the competition rules are going to continue being applicable, and that you may have situations in which, given the fact that they serve different objectives, you could have situations in which both the DMA and the competition rules are applicable at the same time. And bpost from the European Court of Justice has solved the problem by saying when you have different objects, provided that there is coordination. And that's the point. I mean, my perspective from the application of DMA and competition, my view of the application of the DMA by the European Commission and the national competition authorities is all based on the word cooperation and coordination. We really have to be coordinating ourselves in order to extract the best of both tools. And I'm sure that we are going to deal with that in a good way. I mean, I think the Commission will rely on the 27 other colleagues that they have in order to detect and monitor potential infringements of the DMA. At the same time, we're going to be very vigilant in order to be able to detect anything in the area of gatekeepers or non-gatekeepers, but platforms that may be damaging the competition. And the good thing is that we, national competition authorities, are able, if empowered by our legislators, we have been empowered by our legislator, we are going to be able to apply DMA in our territory and also competition, which means that when we are confronted to a problem in the market, we don't have to stop ourselves by saying, wait a minute, if this is DMA, I cannot do it. No, we go and then we identify it, we do the right diagnosis, of course, in cooperation with the Commission. And in this way, we make sure that we are going to tackle all the problems in the digital markets, which is what was expected from us. And I think that was the claim that made the DMA necessary, that competition was not sufficient in itself or not sufficiently rapid in itself to provide with solutions. But I mean, I think DMA is a good example of combination. I, as an integrated authority, as I am, as you were mentioning, the regulatory authority for many markets and also the competition authority. I have other examples that are very good of this complementarity or synergy play that we can do. For example, the liberalization of the railway passenger services in Spain is a very good example, and I think it is a successful example because we started from the regulatory point of view, opening up the market gradually, but at the same time, from the competition angle, we were helping the behavior in the market by the incumbent to be also as open as possible in order not to jeopardize the liberalization process that was there by the regulation of the European Union. So we were paying attention to all those elements of behavior in the market that were not covered by the liberalization process itself, things like maintenance of the track services, for example, that it was for the incumbent only to have the necessary capabilities there. Or what happens with the drivers that are a limited number of people that are well trained? Are there going to be prevented from going to other new entrants, for example? These kind of things were not in the regulatory area. They were much more in the competition area. And we've been working together with one hand and the other in order to make it clear. This was a process that we had already experienced with telecoms, for example, and in every area in which you have network and access problems, you're going to be facing the same situation. You have to deal with the market structure in itself and how to develop the severe infrastructure and service, but also the behavior in the market. So I think that it is a question of having a clear target to go and combining the strengths of both of them. And I don't see the conflict.
Yeah, and indeed, it seems that, so cooperation is the key word, and computational tools can help indeed in making data circulate the flow of data circulates a bit easier between agencies. The DMA is, of course, a very good example. We have now a recent case, Spotify, Apple, in which Mark Vestager said that although it was tackled using Article 102, it's in the realm of the DMA. So that cooperation will be central. Let me now move on to part 3 of our discussion related to the digital challenges. you once said in an interview that you gave to the Toul School of Economics that, and I quote, the main constraint lawyers face when working with economists is that we speak different languages. Now, I would argue that the very same is true for lawyers and computer scientists. So the question is this: what institutional step have you taken already to ensure a constructive dialogue between data, computer scientists, and the lawyers within the agency?
Well, thank you very much for the question. I fully agree that we have a problem of language. Sometimes we call exactly the same thing with completely different names. And I have to say that, for example, at the very beginning of being more acquainted with economic nomenclature, my husband was threatening me with statistic significance, and I was threatening him with fumus boni juris, and we were even because we have different. We really have complicated nomenclature. At the end of the day, concepts is what is really important to be grasped. And I think here we have a very clear competitive advantage because we started our economic intelligence unit from this diversity that I was mentioning, this multidisciplinary focus, but not only, it was in-house. So people that were dealing with the unit and creating it were, in fact, very much aware that they had to cooperate and that they had to make life easier for the other in order to help back. And if a data scientist has a problem of limits, it will have to be able to explain it in an easy way so that the legal part of the unit is going to provide the feedback that is adequate. That's one aspect of it. And the second one is that because they were coming from the authority itself, they were very much aware of the problems that, as I was mentioning before, a case handler, that is, for example, someone that has a degree in pharmacy, and it was extremely important to have this person, for example, in our Lydian case or in our Mer case, because we were able to have the know-how of a person that was very familiar with anything that was related to drugs and pharmaceutical products. But when dealing with, for example, the analysis of margins in order to try to see whether the benefit, the illicit benefit was there or not, she needed the help of both the economists, but also the ones that had to look into the documents in order to see whether they were able to find something there. Yeah. So at the end of the day, the fact of coming from an environment in which you need the help of the other one, I mean, we are really... I think we are very, very lucky in the CNMC because we have different from other authorities, and for example, in a conversation that we were having with DOJ, exchanging views on how our different digital capabilities were evolving. Well, they were mainly composed of lawyers, and we were composed of engineers, data scientists, mathematicians, of course, lawyers and economists, but we have so many different areas of people coming in because, I mean, we have those different profiles from the public administration in our authority, that this provides us with the possibility of speaking a language that then everybody needs to understand. And when you are growing up in an area in which if you speak your only nomenclature, nobody else than your IT colleagues is going to understand you. And on the contrary, during a downgrade, the IT guy has to make it understandable to the lawyer, which he's finding in the metadata or whatever. At the end of the day, you get used to speaking a language that everybody will understand.
Yeah. So in a way, the fact that it's not just lawyers and computer scientists, but also economists, mathematicians, put everyone in a minority position. And because of that, they have more incentive indeed to try to speak the other's language. Now, another challenge may be in the interaction, not between the employees, but the interaction at the level of the agency and companies. And the question is whether you already experienced a situation in which you, let's say, investigated a company. You don't have to name names, but thinking, naturally of big tech companies or companies with big computational power, where they will submit whether so much evidence or an evidence that is so advanced when it comes to computation that it will be a challenge for you as an agency to analyze. Did you ever face that situation?
Not so far. You never know what may the future bring to you, but not so far. But what we have experienced sometimes during downgrades, but this is just because of the typical filters and firewalls that companies have in a natural way, of course, to protect their confidentiality and to protect also to prevent the loss of data for due to unauthorized external access. It is true that when we go there in a downgrade, we confront those problems as it could be in a natural way, and but we've always found cooperation from or because, for example, you have your server in a third country, and then you have all the GDPR protection. You have to explain very well, not only to the people that are in the company, but also to those that are in the third country where the data is stored, that we have the right to access the data. And this is more and more known. So we have less and less problem. But it is true that from a technical point of view, we are now prepared to those challenges, and we go with more patience. That's the way it is. But yeah, I mean, we have to be thinking already in the problems that may come, and because a race of pure brute computational force is one that we could not win due to our natural budget constraints. So we have to be thinking on how to be prepared for this, and if needed, how legislation should be in fact modified or adapted in order for us to be able to exercise our functions properly. Yeah.
Exactly, and assess what is admissible in terms of evidence, what is not. We have done that work with economic evidence, so there is no reason why we couldn't do it for computable evidence. Now, have you ever experienced the opposite problem, which would be going after a company that has no computing capacity, no computational understanding, and you using those tools in a way that may create, an issue when it comes to fair trial and the rights of defense?
Well, mainly because we are also having a multi or a diverse composition of our case handlers. It is also very clear that the rights of the defense are the ABC of our work. So we know very well that it doesn't matter which are the means that we are using, the companies have to be aware of the information that they are providing us. They have to be able to access it in a way that allows them to make their defense proper and adequate. So even if we have those capabilities, at the end of the day, we will have to put that evidence in a way that allows the company to defend them properly. So, and that, I think, it is also the result of having a part of our mind that is a legal mind, together with the economists, etc. So it is the benefit of having, again, these integrated teams that there is always someone saying rights of the defense. That's a very clear procedure to be followed, and the company has to be aware of absolutely everything. Yeah.
All right. If I may, maybe one final bonus question, which is more on the light side of things. So evidently you have cooperated with many other agencies when it comes to those issues, computational law, trying to modernize, learning from what agencies have done, agencies learning from you. Which other agency did you appreciate the most, in a sense, or is the most cooperative, or at least do you have the closest tie when it comes to those related issues?
I would say that we are growing up together at this moment, and we are very open. I mean, we've been called for by many agencies, and we are, to the extent that we have time and resources, we are always happy to help them. But I would say that we are growing up together very in a very nice way, because we exchange experiences, and I think that there is an understanding by, I would say, everyone in the enforcement area that we need to be really helping each other, because we have global challenges. So I think it is I would say that this is a common task. Yeah.
And something I've mentioned already in our annual conference last year is that when we started project 4 years ago, we had this work of convincing some agencies. Some agencies already knew this was important, but some other agencies were very skeptic. The type of thinking being, well, our job is complicated enough, so let's not talk about computational tools. But now I think we've passed that, and every agency is on board. But the question is, how do we deploy? Where? What are the limits? And I'm so grateful that the Spanish Competition Agency, under your leadership, is taking such a big role, an important role, and is leading the pack. So for that, thank you very much. And I guess we can end the conversation over here. So to everyone out there, take care of yourself, and if you can, someone else too. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Let me just say to finish that, in fact, I've been walking on the shoulders of giants because when I took office, this was a project that was already on board. Yep. But I have to say that I have also benefited from the creativity of many of the people in the agency. The other day, well, not the other day, 1 year ago, one of the members of my team was telling me we have to be prepared for downgrades in the metaverse. And of course, the reaction of many was starting laughing. And I said, well, I wouldn't be laughing. So that was exactly the same situation when in 2018, Beatriz de Guindos started with this possibility and everybody was looking at her like saying, I'm very thankful to people that have this creativity, and I am on board, of course, but it is a teamwork, I wanted to say.
I will pay a fair amount of money to see which avatar you would choose within the metaverse to actually enter the premises of the company. And
I already have one. Okay. Right. Well, thank you very much.
Again, thank you very much, and hope to see you soon.
Same here. Bye-bye.